Good morning, OVV. Welcome back. Thanks for tuning in. So this morning we wanted to look at 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 12, and I'll read it to you. It says, "But we did not use this right. On the contrary, we put up with anything rather than hinder the gospel of Christ." So there's this dominant concern that seems to be at the forefront of Paul's mind, right? And that concern is that he does not want anything to hinder the gospel of Jesus Christ. And I just want to reflect on what the gospel is for a second, because we can sometimes just skip over that. But the gospel is the good news that Jesus preached, and then the disciples and the apostles explained, right? And in short, it's that God the Father has provided a way for humanity to be brought back into relationship with God. And then he's then inviting the world into that. So we can know God, the source of all light, life, and goodness. And then we can also share that invitation because it's for everyone. And Paul is saying that there are things that he might be perfectly in his rights to do, but that the invitation of God is so much higher than that and so much more valuable. And that Paul is willing to give up these rights that he has for the sake of this invitation of God. And I think that you can think about this like a barrier that's been helpful for me. My role as a follower of Jesus is to hold out the offer and the invitation into the kingdom of God. However, because we're fallible and we're human beings, and we are often erecting barriers to this invitation, right? And barriers to this gospel that don't need to be there. So we're often acting in ways, or we're doing things that create barriers to this invitation. So God extends this invitation to everybody, and we're supposed to carry that message, but sometimes in the way that we act or the things that we say, we erect barriers, and so it doesn't seem like that invitation is really matching with the way that we're acting. So these barriers, they could look like all kinds of things, right? And I'll just share some of what they've looked like in my own experience, because I'm sure there's thousands of different examples. But so in my own experience, barriers have looked like me not being interested in making friendships with those who are outside of the church. It's hard to say that you love people if the way that you act doesn't really show that, and if you don't really have an interest in making friends with them. Another one of these barriers has been me not being willing to ask hard questions about my faith, or being fearful of the beliefs of others and being fearful to engage with them. I think on another level, it's, we kind of say that we desire truth and that God is truth, but when we don't match that up with the questions that we ask and the way that we talk, I think that creates another barrier, right? And it doesn't communicate who God is, and it doesn't communicate that invitation very well. A third barrier has been I found myself ashamed of my faith, right? Or scared that just because I thought it, that I didn't have good reasons for believing it, or that the reasons why I believe things weren't as legitimate as the way that other people thought. And so these are barriers. And as I read this text and as I think on it, I guess I hear it asking, are there any barriers or hindrances to the gospel in your life that need to be torn down so that the invitation of God to the people around you can be more clear? And I hear it saying, do all that you can to make the invitation of God. Do all that you can to make this open. Do all that you can to make this as welcoming as possible. There are already enough barriers to people coming to God without us having to add more to them. So that's the thought for today. If you guys have comments or questions, please feel free to reach out, or I guess you can put them on this video. Thanks for tuning in. Bye for now.